everyone. Today we are going to be learning about something called colons. I'll just be totally frank with you. I don't like colons. I think they're very confusing, and I don't feel like their rules are clear enough, I suppose is the word I'm looking for. But especially if you are an ACT-minded person, you're going to want to know what colons are and how to use them. So here we go. Here's what a colon looks like, by the way, that little thing after the word rules. I want to remind you, these are all general rules. As with many things in life, there are always small little exceptions here and there, but these are the general rules. The first part of this lesson is going to be about using colons in lists. Sometimes we want to use colons before we give a list, and sometimes we don't. We don't want to use a colon if the list or the series of items follows a verb, which is an action word, or a preposition. Here are some common prepositions. So you'll see here, these two examples are correct. They need the colon because the word that precedes or comes before the list of items is a noun. It is not a verb and it is not a preposition. You'll see down here, these are also correct because we have here a verb and we have here a preposition. So if the list directly follows a verb or preposition, we do not want to use a colon. Some things to note here, these lists essentially say the same thing, but based on the way that we word the sentences, that will change the necessity or not of using a colon. Confusing, I know. The second part is what you will see more often on something like the ACT. You probably won't see many lists on the ACT. This is, in my opinion, even more confusing because, like I said, the rules aren't as hard and fast. So you can also use a colon to separate an explanation, rule, illustration, or example from a preceding complete thought. Here are examples. These are both written correctly. After a sleepless night, the senator made her decision. She would not seek re-election. There was one thing stopping me from getting up on that stage. Pure, unadulterated fear. What I want you to notice about both of these things. The wording on the left of the colon, those are complete sentences on their own. They could stand on their own. What's nice about the colon and kind of what it does is that it allows a little bit more information, because if I were to just write, after a sleepless night, the senator made her decision, that does make sense, but I'm left wanting a little more information. Well, what was her decision? In the second example, there was one thing stopping me from getting up on that stage. And that does work on its own, but again, as an audience member or a reader, I think, well, what was that one thing? What's the thing stopping you? And here I have my answer. So that colon just provides an additional explanation, example, illustration, etc. So one distinction between semicolons and colons. When you use a semicolon, you have to have a complete thought on both sides of the punctuation mark. When you use a colon, you only have to have a complete thought on the left side of the colon. The right side can be a complete thought, but it does not have to be. So I will tell you this, the ACT will not ask you to choose between a colon and a semicolon. So if those are two options, that means the question is asking you about something else. They will not ask you to choose between those two because oftentimes you could use either or. So just some other ways to think about this. Think of the colon as a gate inviting you to go on, like it's opening up to more information. Or think of the colon as meaning that is to say, or here's what I mean. Here's some more information about what I wrote on the left side of this colon. Like I said, colons are confusing. I wish I had something more positive to say about them, but they kind of stink. We won't see them super often, but we will see them often enough that it's good to know how to use them. As always, if you have questions, let me know. Happy grammaring!